What's up, babies? Today we're talking about Counter-Strike 2, new players. If you're new to the game, you might find that CS2 doesn't exactly go out of its way to ease you in. So today we're talking about why Counter-Strike 2 could be a challenging experience to those unfamiliar with its game mechanics. So whether you're a newcomer or just curious about the hurdles that it presents, follow along as we explore why Counter-Strike 2 isn't the most welcoming for new players. Alright, so the first thing we're going to look at in terms of new player experience is the first thing they see whenever they boot up the game. This is going to use editing magic to make this a dramatic retelling of what it's like to launch this game. I've made a new account recently just to see what it's like. I didn't record it because I was just curious. I wanted to see what a new player would see in Counter-Strike 2, so here we go. So you hit launch. Wait for it to load. Immediately what it does is it sends you into this training day game mode. And what this training day game mode is it functionally just the tutorial for the game, but the information that it gives you I don't think is particularly helpful, because as a new player and all of these things are new to you. The things it recommends you to buy in the menu, tells you to open the menu, armor or a pistol, doesn't tell you anything about like your economy. You're the bomber. Damn, even in bot games, your teammates are gonna bait you. Dickhead. It tells you how to plant the bomb. Lets you know that it's not for all the Valorant players. That's not even who I'm particularly worried about in this case, because Valorant players have experienced what this game kind of is. They just have abilities. What are you doing? Even in bot games, there's baiters, man. What the fuck? So I have $5,000, and it will not recommend me the AK. P90, shotgun, MAC-10, what it recommends. Which, for round 2 after winning, SMG's shotguns is okay. The Galil is one of the best guns in the game. They could recommend that. And this gameplay is, like, very undynamic in this particular game mode. And still, like, I want to reiterate, like, it doesn't tell you anything about, like, how the economy works. Like, Valorant players will understand that there's an economy system in the game and there's stuff that they have to do to like work around it. But like if you're a person who's never played a tactical shooter at all, what are you supposed to expect whenever the game doesn't give you any sort of information about like playing the economy in an effective way that helps your team win? Because you'll see it in higher levels where people have no respect for the economy. People who realistically should have some sort of idea of how to buy with your team whenever you're supposed to, when to save with your team. All right, we're gonna do a little experiment over here. I'm going to show you something that a new player will probably experience in this game mode is dying. Maybe not like this, maybe they could, but me as an experienced Counter-Strike player, I know that down in the bottom it says it too, press E to control bots. New player is so overwhelmed because this is the 3rd round they've ever seen of this game. They missed the thing. Now they're just sitting here watching bots play. What are they learning from this? All right, now I have $10,000. I don't know what it's going to recommend me. I think it's not going to be an AK. It won't recommend me the AK. And if you're a new player and you're curious, this is the best gun in the game. Some people might say the AWP. You can beat an AWP with some utility. The AK is the most versatile gun in the game. It can one-tap, whereas both of the M4s cannot. The one-tap range is a lot further than the Deagle. Bullet-wise, it's not as strong as the SG, but it didn't even recommend that either. And like, if you wanted to upgrade a pistol, the better pistol to upgrade to would be the Tech 9. It's one of the more broken guns in the game because it has perfect running accuracy, where none of the other pistols, or guns for that matter, have that in the game. The gun's accuracy is low, but like it doesn't have a drop off because you're moving. So it makes stuff like really fast peaks possible. Get the fuck out of the way. What are you doing? Fucking dumbasses. But like full sprinting, you could land your shots, and it's like how the gun is supposed to work. There are a lot of circumstances where you'll see people full sprinting and landing sprays with rifles. That's just the game hates you. It might just be a me experience. The game just might hate me. And I think that might actually be the case. But this is the gun that you're supposed to run and shoot with. This is what makes this gun strong. And it doesn't recommend it. Like the strongest equipment in the game, it will not recommend. And speaking of equipment, that's another thing that we'll end up getting into, because like there's no effort amongst any of this in terms of like helping a new player get into what the game is supposed to be. The last round of the half doesn't recommend any of the good weapons, doesn't recommend flashbangs, doesn't recommend the AWP. New players love the AWP, love scope weapons. I've never actually made it this far into the training thing, so it does recommend defuse kits. That's what I was curious about. I was thinking it might not, just because it seems like the game just kind of disregards what you're supposed to do with the economy outside of like, don't know, buy an auto shotgun. Like if you have $2,000, it'll recommend an auto shotgun. And you can buy that without armor with $2,000. That's all you can afford. And like immediately, like the M4A1S is one of the best options on CT side. And if you just decide to use it instead of any of the other guns, when you're a new player, this is the gun that you'll get good at. You realize you have to stand still. You have to land your first shot. There's just these things that the game will not teach you. And it's stuff that's like really requisite for playing this game at anything close to an adequate level. What does it recommend? Okay, so at $1,400, telling me to buy MP9. Disregard my armor. That's what the game just taught me. Don't care about your armor. You have enough money to buy a thing? Buy it. It's a good idea. So immediately what new players are being taught is don't worry about what your money is. Don't even consider what your teammates' money is. If you have money for something, buy it. It's a bad lesson to teach new players. Doesn't recommend the M4A4, one of the better guns in the game overall. I'd say the A1S and the AK have it beat. Opposite situational enough that it's like, it's iffy, especially in this version of Counter-Strike because the hit registration is just bad. Regardless of what your ping is, you're gonna have a hard time landing shots with the op, but it just doesn't recommend any of the good guns. It's recommending SMGs and the shotgun. And then you see all of the teammates and all of the enemies always buying SMGs. Stop looking at me like that. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're just like fucking staring at me. Kiss your dad. We'll get it on like fucking gorillas. When does this game end? The half was at 5 rounds. Final round. Final round. Does that mean I can make my team lose? Let's lose this round. Does that end the game? Indeed it does. Interesting. I've never finished one of these games before. What did we learn from that game? What is a new player supposed to glean from that? Like what information was relevant there that would help a new player once they click on one of the game modes at play? Another thing I want to cover in terms of new players having confusion in terms of how the game is supposed to work is how to use grenades. Because there's, even with like experienced players, people with thousands of hours, there is a hard misunderstanding of how to use a lot of the utility in the game. So once a new player gets out of the training day tutorial, they might want to go look at grenades because they know Counter-Strike is a game where you need to know grenade lineups. And even that's like way too much to expect from a new player in a lot of circumstances. But this theoretical new player knows that there are nade lineups that you need to learn, but isn't too particularly interested in spending a lot of time practicing and studying just to play a video game with a couple of their friends. So right here is the cutoff where a lot of new players get lost and just never care about grenades. But this is what new players are supposed to do whenever they launch the game and want to start learning how to play better. Pick a map, might turn on grenade camera. I don't think it particularly helps all too much just because you're focused more on the camera rather than the lineup itself. So I like leaving it off. But for this circumstance, I will turn it on just because you can't expect new players to have no clip and cheats turned on so they can no clip. So we're gonna just jump into overpass. So a new player gets in the server, practice some grenades. Where do they go? What do they do? How do they know what to look up? I am experienced, so I know what you're supposed to do. Open your web browser, CS2 nades, or CS nades. This is the website that I was looking for. Overpass. What does a new player do with this information? How does a new player know which smokes are worth throwing? And if you can imagine, this is where you lose a lot of new players wanting to learn about the game. This point right here, looking at CS nades loaded into a map where you could practice nades, is several steps past what a new player would do if they wanted to play the game. I understand a lot of people, or probably most people, don't want to spend time practicing nades for a game that they play once or twice a week with a friend. And for a lot of people, they're probably not going to be the most competitive people in the server in the first place. But I'm a competitive person and I think winning is fun. Finding ways to consistently win makes the experience a lot more fun. If you're a new player, how are you going to get to that point without Valve doing something to help? And part of the problem is that you have to go to a nade site to learn how to throw nades. And you're supposed to have watched enough Counter-Strike to know, oh, this heaven smoke is really important. Let me learn how to throw that. You click on a random one. I don't like that lineup, but there are any number of lineups that work here. You're supposed to know that this is one of the more important lineups to know as a new player. You're expected to learn that at some point, but the game doesn't go out of its way at all to let you know. The game expects you to know how to throw a smoke like this. to help your team while you're on the upper bomb site, and you defend up here while your teammates, sometimes 2 of them will go down to B and hold, and this smoke lets them save their smokes for later in the round. You're supposed to know that. When are you supposed to learn that? Unless you're watching countless hours of gameplay, pros, high-level players, you're expected to just know a lot of this stuff. When are you supposed to learn it? Who was supposed to give you the information? And it's not Valve. It hasn't been Valve. I think it should be Valve. You have other games like Valorant that have more in-depth intros of like what this game is supposed to be like from a moving and shooting perspective. And in a game where you move and you shoot and that's how you win, that's pretty important. And if you look at CSGO's tutorial in terms of moving and shooting, it has its own built-in like custom game mode where you're speedrunning and you're learning about like, I can go fast if I coordinate my moving and shooting, and that's how you get like really good times. You're landing one-shot headshots with the AK on all the standing targets. In this game, in order to move well and have like consistent movement, you have to de-subtick your movement in an auto exec. Do you know how many steps removed from a new player you have to be to de-subtick your movement in an auto exec? And if you're a new player watching that, it's okay to not understand what that meant. It was gibberish. I just feel that Valve in general should just be more on the hook about how they welcome new players, because this experience is very lackluster. And like for the final time I'll mention this, me joining a server by myself to learn and practice nades 5 steps too far for what a new player would do. It's not something they would even consider. It's not something they would even realize is a problem until they're 500 hours in. And for a game series as old as Counter-Strike, 500 hours is still a pretty new account in the grand scheme of like some of the people who are still playing pro. Like I don't believe there are many holdovers from 1.6, but there's still a lot of source pros playing a game that came out in 2004. So if you're playing now and you match up with a guy playing from 2004, what are you supposed to do? And the resources to get better that were around in 2004 haven't gotten much better. It's right around the same level. There's just now custom maps. Well, that's not even true. One of the advantages that CSGO had over this game, other than everything that this game represents, was that the workshop in Counter-Strike Global Offensive was very good in terms of like nade practice maps. There are a lot of maps that like tell you, stand right here, throw it like this, it lands in the spot that you want. And it's a very streamlined way of figuring out how to throw grenades instead of going through the hassle of figuring out where do you stand from a website and where do you aim from a website. You just go into a map and you figure out how to do it with your hands and your eyes. And here we're going to take a little field trip. We're going to look at the Steam Workshop for Counter-Strike 2, and we're going to point out all of the grenade training map. I'm going to point out all of them. We're going to stop and point when we find them. And I'm talking grenade training maps, not aim training maps. There's a lot of aim trainers now that are pretty good. I like Aim Labs. Recoil Master is pretty much required, however. It's a good one though. Wow, we found one. This is not one I was expecting, to be honest. It's the whole shebang. Look at that. I was expecting another map. We will continue to look though. Here's the other one. So far, page 3, there are 2 grenade practice maps. Let's continue looking. And a reminder, we're looking for grenade practice maps. Not an aim training map, not cool versions of old maps, just grenade lineups. Because in CSGO, you could look at the workshop, find a lot of them for every map, several by different mappers. And so far, the 2 that we found were for the window smoke in Mirage, and that was it. And one of the things this particular issue has raised my concern over is, like, are the workshop tools inadequate in this version? I understand the game is only 4 months old, and at the time of recording, it is 4 months old. And it took, 2 months for them to add the workshop in general, the access for everyone to use it and like make stuff. Like, is there just a problem with the mapping tools right now? Because I know in the movement communities, KZ and Surf and B-Hop, there's issues with a lot of collision and getting stuck on stuff, ankles getting grabbed by invisible demons on the ramps. Like, is the mapping tools and the workshop tools just not good right now? Something I'm genuinely interested in. Because all of these maps just look like, someone's first try at making a map, 1v1 arenas, or straight ports of old maps. And the straight ports are going to be broken like a lot of the Surf maps are right now. It's like first projects, 1v1 maps, and ports of old maps. So it was on page 3 that we saw the last grenade maps. Page 17, been 14 pages. I believe I've made my point. They're not here. The workshop maps aren't here, and I don't particularly blame the creators. Counter-Strike 2 as a game was kind of just forced out of the door because they didn't want to miss their summer 2023 window. And they did because it came out a couple days after summer officially ended. They missed their release window anyway. They should have just delayed the full release. We're still beta testing the game, and it's 17 days into the new year. And for the record, I do not have a problem with going out of your way to look up tutorials for this game. I recommend it. It's how you get better at the game. I just wish that it wasn't absolutely required to go out of your way to watch hundreds of hours of tutorials, grenade lineups, crosshair placement tutorials. I just think that in-game there should be some sort of effort from Valve's side, from Valve proper, from the top down, being this is how you should approach the game as a new player. Because this is the kind of game where playing better makes it more fun. There are some games where you can log on and just diddle around with your friends and not care about the results. In this kind of game, you're going to run into people who want to care. You're going to run into people on your team who want to care. And if you're letting random strangers down because you just don't care about a video game, that makes it less fun for other people. I don't think this game is fun when you're just screwing around. A lot of the fun, especially in the only game mode that they offer that you can derive from this game, is playing well. That's what they're focusing on. Otherwise, they would have given us more fun game modes like Flying Scoutsman and Arms Race. They would have launched the game more ready for stuff like community game modes. But because of Valve's actions and the way they've patched the game and modeled this version of the game, they care about the skins and they care about the esports. Those are the two things that Valve think really represent this version of the game, and that's what they're trying to hammer home. And when you focus on skins and esports, that leaves a very large no man's land for a lot of new players who are this is just a video game, right? No. People spend a lot of money, people earn a lot of money, people bet a lot of money. And playing this game has gotten a little bit more serious. Thank everybody for watching. This is something I kind of want to start doing on this channel, exploring more video essay-ish type videos. If you enjoyed the video, I'd encourage you to subscribe and to like. And if there's other things that you might be interested in hearing me talk about, leave a comment down in the comments below. Let me know some sort of random Counter-Strike 2 topics you might want me to get into. Talk about Valve, talk about Counter-Strike, Steam, just random shit like that. I encourage all actual constructive feedback. If you're mean, you can eat my ass. I don't know. So yeah, thank everybody for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next episode of Skibidi Toilet. Dope. Jesus Christ. Oh my God.